And so constantly being challenged and evolving has been a large part. And if that is part of our culture, at the same time, we do have to do things around looking at our incentive compensation and being at market and making sure we're also there for people as they're growing in their careers. So I would say there's no one thing. There's many things we look at. We value people. We are in that service industry. So if you start there, you start with a heart for your people, what's the right thing to do for our teams and our leaders, that will translate. And having that across how we look at our entire business, whether it's our incentive plans, whether it's recognition, appreciation, that has been our success for so many years.
Welcome to Multifamily Excellence, the podcast that explores the ever-evolving world of the multifamily industry. I'm your host, Jonathan Treble. In each episode, I'll spend time with a world-class multifamily leader to learn how they're continuously pushing boundaries for excellence. You'll get to hear their perspectives on career progression, leadership philosophies, and strategies for operational excellence. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Multifamily Excellence. This episode is brought to you by my company, With Me. With Me makes people's lives better every day through convenient, technology-enabled solutions for the multifamily apartment industry and beyond. Today, I'm thrilled to be joined by David Diestel, the CEO of FirstService Residential, North America's largest residential property management company. Under David's leadership, FirstService now manages over 9,000 communities across the United States and Canada and serves more than 1.8 million homes. They have a team of over 18,000 associates, and they're leading the way in simplifying property management while enhancing the living experience of their residents. David, it's a pleasure to have you on the show.
And Jonathan, thank you for having me today. Pleasure to be here.
There's so much to talk about with your career and leadership, and I want to go all the way back and just follow the arc of your career. So if we could talk about your first experience after undergrad, working in the workforce and maybe first stepping into a managerial role, what would that experience have been?
Yeah, wow, Jonathan, you're taking me way, way back. I would say when I think back to the career and what got me here today, always been about getting the right things done with a team, whether it was through college and early career. And so my first job right out of undergrad, I was at McGill. I'm a chemical engineer, didn't really know what path I was going to take. And I started off life as an environmental consultant. That was my first gig. Took a chance on me, and it was a terrific learning experience for me. I then decided it was time to do my own thing. I joined the family business, and there working alongside my father. It was a apparel manufacturing in the Far East, and just running a business, that responsibility and learning what it took to delight customers and what we did way back then. And, I think back to those formative years, shaped me in who I am today.
How much of your leadership style, the fabric of how you think of yourself as a leader, how much do you think comes from your dad?
Oh, a lot. I have a lot to be grateful for. Some of the lessons I learned early on, today we're all in the property management industry. And way back then, I traded the Paris lingerie show for CAI industry conferences. And what I remember just way back early was walking around trade shows, working with vendors, and everybody knew my father and my grandfather back then, but it was what they said about how they supported them early, reputation, and just treating people right, especially vendors are so important. And, that really struck me. And how you sort of treat people along your journey, it's just something that I was really just formed an early impression on me. And that has always stayed with me as I travel around, as I know you do, but as I've traveled, It's what people say about you. And that's always stuck with me. So
That's amazing. You had those great examples so close to you in your early career. And I've had the fortune of seeing my dad run a business and the teammates that were loyal to him, and the kind things people said about his company's work. So I can relate. And I'm sure when you switched industries, right, you started with your family business. It was in apparel. Then after you got your MBA in Toronto, I believe that's when you entered FirstService. You were still able to bring a lot of that mentality of being customer centric to property management. And what better industry to be customer centric with than one that's dealing with people's homes, right, where they live. Was that a natural transition for you?
It wasn't apparent to me out of the gate. And Jonathan, what you say is right. My first experience in how I could essentially rebrand, what is a kid from Hong Kong in a family business? How do you change careers, take your MBA, learn new skills, and find such a wonderful home as I have at FirstService? And I'll tell you, my first interviews at FirstService were tough. It was about, and the reason it was for me, what do I know about what FirstService did every day? And at the end, it was about running a business and how do you treat people and customers. And I'm very grateful that FirstService took a chance on me back then. I learned new skills, and what has always stuck with me was those early roles I had at FirstService. It was the trust that they placed in me to just show up in a business. My first day at FirstService, I'm back here in Toronto, and they took me on a subway. Tim, my boss at the time, dropped me off with a CEO at a security business and said, go work with Rennie and grow the business, figure it out, and have impact. And they weren't worried that I was going to blow the whole place up, but it was the trust. And I've been fortunate to work with many great leaders that way. And I think that's always been important to me, Jonathan. Trust, having the trust of leadership and the team. And that was a great experience. And I made a few mistakes along the way, by the way.
And we all did, right? And looking back, what you mentioned, Supervisor Tim, you mentioned just a culture of trust. What do you think really stood out about FirstService's culture that inspired you to continue on your leadership journey?
Yeah. So what was important to me even back then was I talked about trust. It was also having impact and being able to just get things done with a team. And Tim back then was terrific. The vision around growing a service business, way back then, there was a vision in the industry we're in today to grow, have impact, and enhance people's property values, make a difference in their lives. And so that has been core to who we are for so long. And that's what's motivated me, is even early career, to be able to show up in a business, make a difference. Something that's always stuck with me, work with a great team and just continuous learning.
David, I'd love to talk with you more about managing a distributed workforce, because in many ways, you and your company have been doing this for decades, because property management at the end of the day is distributed. You have small teams of clusters of people across today 9,000 communities. And a lot of our newer companies out there, including mine, have only been distributed and remote work for about 4 years since the coronavirus pandemic. What can you share about how you've managed to keep such a vibrant culture across 9,000 communities in 2 countries? There must be some tactics, some things you've implemented that are helping you do that.
Yeah, well, Jonathan, that is our secret sauce, our service culture, the DNA that unifies us across our organization. 9,000 communities. I am so proud of our frontline teams every day. But how we've done that has taken a lot of investment and focus on understanding our service industry. And so I will take you back. We were 2012. We were operating 24 different brands, 24 different markets. And at that time, we weren't unified. And so we made the big strategic decision to come together as one unified brand in 2013. Now, back then, I thought it was a name change. Didn't understand the power of creating a true brand, what you're known for. And so we came together under FirstService Residential. But what that did was that was a unified mission, our values, what became our service standards. And so today we realized, how do we keep that alive? So each and every day, we have First Call, which is a 15-minute huddle lineup for those of you in the hospitality industry will be familiar with this. We did learn from other hospitality leaders, and we created First Call. And so I'm here in Toronto today with a team, 15 minutes. We appreciate, we celebrate, we share stories and just reinforce our values. And it is that's what drives and sustains us at property, whether you're in the heart of the house. We do it everywhere with our 18,000 associates. And so that's very proud of what we've done as a team around that. And it's hard.
Does that First Call have the same structure every day?
Oh, Jonathan, you know how hard this is. It does. We create a script every day. That's one of our service values, mission, a story, customers share, residents write in, kudos. So we do share a script, but the real magic happens when a leader owns it themselves and makes it part of a team. So we leave it up to a leader at property or in our offices to really own it and just decide what's best for their team. So some of our teams every day do it virtual. Some of our teams have decided they want to do Mondays and Fridays in person, 3 days a week virtual. At properties, a lineup in front of residents as they leave for commuting. Whatever works best for that team, they decide. So we don't have not all of us on one call. It's got to be about the team and creating that little magic moment, 15 minutes, just talk about the day and what's happening. It's been very powerful.
I can imagine. And I'm just curious, how many values are rotated through that script? I know my company has 4 key values and 24 work standards. Do you
similar?
Similar?
Yeah, we're very similar. 6 values, our mission, as well as 15 service standards that you described. And so we rotate them. And how do you keep it alive? So we do have to mix it up. Fun Fridays. We share a customer story on Tuesdays. So, but the feedback from our teams and how to do that is really important. So we do have a team who look at doing that and produce that in advance. I did have a learning when I was down in Miami, and I was at a couple of our luxury properties, and the teams were translating it in Spanish.
Oh.
We were spending all this time and this responsibility I had, and I was like, why are they doing all this work? So today you could probably do it with AI in 2 seconds. But back then, so we issue scripts in Spanish today, in English. I'm up in Canada. Do we look at other languages using AI? We haven't done it yet, but that's so important. It was so important for our teams to do it. And anyway, that's just being out of property is important to me.
That's incredible. And to scale that nationwide across 9,000 workplaces is really impressive. Is there maybe another similar ritual or practice that you feel makes a big difference in preserving your culture?
Yeah, when you were describing culture, Jonathan, one other investment we've made in our teams is in our what we call Be the Difference, which is our program. It's an immersion in what does healthy high performance look like for an individual. I have learned in my career, it is important that we take work-life balance seriously. We want our leaders to be at their best, as well as all of our team members. And so the culture of how things happen around our organization is important, how we support each other, what are the behaviors. And so in our Be the Difference program, we immerse everyone in a 2-day workshop with other leaders, sharing stories, and it's about personal growth. And how can you just be at your best? And so that is one other example of what we're doing to just invest in our culture and our teams everywhere. So just healthy, high performance, right? We're all in stressful jobs. I mean, you know, how do you stay healthy, Jonathan? How do you look after yourself?
Well, self-care is important. Absolutely. And for me, it takes the form of fitness, and I'm almost daily with exercise of all different types. And I can notice on days that I don't. So I need to keep that going. It's meditation, it's eating well, sleeping well, all the basics, right? And to piggyback off what you're saying on trying to encourage your team to be healthy, I have one leader on my team, a VP, who you mentioned before, making a practice their own. We encourage all of our leaders, so anybody who manages people, we encourage them in every weekly one-on-one they have with one of their reports to ask 3 questions at the end of each one-on-one. And what I really love about what Becky did is she varies it up sometimes. Probably every 2 weeks, she's asking also, hey, how are you doing personally? You know, how's your personal life going? And because, you know, there could be some factor that we don't know about because it's not directly work related, and maybe the report didn't feel comfortable bringing it up because they're not sure if that should be a workplace thing. But just checking in at a high level, hey, how are you doing personally? Could really show that we care about the full person. And it is tough in this remote environment that we're now all, well, at least in my company, we're all getting used to. It's easy for the lines to be blurred between work and personal life, and to get burned out and to never unplug. I've seen it in my own work styles. I needed to take a sabbatical last year to kind of detox the dopamine addictions of work. And I'm hearing about it from many folks in my network. And so we encourage people to turn their devices off after work, use your vacation days, definitely turn the phone off when you're not at the workplace. And it's so important.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. It, I've seen it's term you use, self-care, understanding where you are, stress levels. I found myself, my team at one point needed to say to me, you need to take some time. It's really important to have people around you as well who can give you feedback. And, we know that there's ups and downs in our business, and we want everybody, as I said earlier, at their best, and recognize the signs of when you need to take a break, take your vacations. But I did like what you said, the caring. And I found that balance, the question you asked is, when do you cross into the personal versus work? What I like to ask the question and then just pause. People want to share. And if they believe you really do care, and they back to the trust,
right?
They'll share. And it's important that people know we're with them, and we only want what's best for them in their career growth, and how do we support them in the next steps in their career, or just as they're going through difficult times, whatever they are.
David, I know you're an athlete. Can you share more about how your sport, whether it's running, pickleball, freediving, how that has influenced your focus and motivation to be as successful as you have been in your career?
You're being kind with the athlete reference, Jonathan, but I will say it is important. My new love for pickleball is has taken over, and I'm really enjoying that. It's in our communities. I am competitive with myself, and I'm really enjoying that. Um, my running though is much deeper. Like it is when I'm able to really challenge myself to be better and be out there. And it is when it's my time alone. I love the simplicity of running. Pair of shoes, you just go. And it is when I solve a lot of business challenges. It's when I think about life and the business we're in, and it's my time. And I'm enjoying ramping back up. I tend to bounce around when I'm feeling motivated, again, busy at work. Things sometimes slide, but I'm in a great, I love coming back. It's become a thing for me to really dig in and see how I can improve performance. We talk about healthy eye performance, man. The running thing is amazing. And there's a lot of parallels for me in terms of business with running. The discipline, the training, how hard do you push yourself? Do you push yourself early? I think of all the change around us in the world, and the parallels are just tremendous that way. Because you go out too early, too fast, if you haven't done the training. Anyway, some of your audience are active endurance athletes. I'd love to have this deeper conversation on this topic because for me, it's been very rewarding. And it's made me better at work. Do you train early in the morning? Are you an early morning?
I do. I'm an early morning.
Yeah.
And luckily right now I'm looking out the window at Camelback Mountain, which is just an incredible place to hike. And either I'm jogging up or down carefully because I've tripped up a couple times on the mountain. But, it is, I'm just lucky to have a great environment around me for.
Yeah. And since you asked about my free diving, I need to fully disclose I'm out of that.
Okay.
I enjoyed it. It learned a lot about sport. If you think about mental discipline, I got totally immersed, no pun intended, in the world of free diving for a short period. And then I realized I needed to tap out.
Pickleball took over.
Pickleball took over, replaced the free. My wife is thrilled. I'm no longer free diving, but that is mental discipline. And that really taught me. If you want, try this, John. On your couch, how long can you hold your breath for? And it's that point where it's all mental. Like you can push through and just hold your breath and you'll be fine. So,
wow, that's incredible. I know some people who can, do 7 to 10 minutes.
Yes.
I haven't done it, but I can't imagine training for that. That would be pretty mentally tough. So, David, one theme of the show that I love to ask leaders like yourself is, what advice would they have to up and comers who someday would love to be the CEO of a large company in our space? If you could look back objectively on your career and what's maybe 2 or 3 things that you think you learned and employed early and often to help you continue to grow, what would those skills be?
I would say what you ended with, the constant learning and making the most of every opportunity wherever you're at in your career. And, I had some roles I never believed my career path. I never knew I'd be the internal audit Sarbanes-Oxley guy for FirstService for 2 years. I didn't know I would be rebranding our organization. I never dreamt I'd start off as whatever stage it was,
right?
Make the most of it, learn from others. And so that's it's always been what I've done. And I talk about doing it with a team. And that's the second part of the advice, which is be successful with a team. I've never worried. Don't worry about your own receiving recognition. To create success, have impact, and think really carefully. who do you want to be and what do you want to be known for? And I go back to how we started our conversation, reputation. And if you're known early as being, people want you as part of the team and grow, that, how easy it makes it how easy it is for me when I ask somebody's name and the whole team smiles. And they say, oh, sure, it's terrific. We want him on this project. And just do that and have impact. Put your hand up from time to time. Throughout my career, I put my hand up for some roles. I was also asked to put my hand down, not ready yet. That was okay. I do hear a lot, and we all see this in the workplace. Don't do that every 2 weeks. But my advice is just grab opportunities, be part of a team, and create success for you. And just be aware of your reputation.
And one thing I want to note, you've been at FirstService now 22 years, if I have the number correctly. And that's remarkable because in our kind of modern workplace, it's rare for people to stick around as long as you have. Any advice to folks who are maybe deliberating between whether their career could be accelerated by taking a role at a different firm or staying the course?
Yeah, I would say the same advice, which is every moment, make the most of it. If you're continuing to have, for me, my advice, if you're continuing to have impact and you're enjoying the challenge, you're in a great place. And I've been fortunate over 22 years to have been in a number of different roles I mentioned. So it has felt to me like I was in different jobs, even though I've been with the same organization. So I have benefited from that, meeting other leaders, constantly being challenged, learning new things. And so that's worked for me, and that's been wonderful at FirstService. If you're at a point where you're no longer learning, having impact, not happy in the role, that's a big part of that. So I've seen other tremendous careers with people moving to other organizations. We all know, be cautious with job hopping frequently. Would be my advice for people early career. But at the same time, you can also be successful. I think be comfortable every opportunity and when you make a change. I will share a little secret sauce for you, Jonathan. There's a great book called Who.
And I love that book.
Where it talks about how you've left an organization and how you ended up in your roles. So just think carefully about that. In terms of other leaders, if you're being pulled by others, I talk about reputation. You'd be amazed how many people we've recruited through that. So that's other advice I would give is,
well, and on the flip side, you've encouraged tenure at your company. Before the show, I noticed on LinkedIn, the average tenure at your company is over 5 years. Again, remarkable for this day and age, remarkable for our industry, which has so much lateral movement. What if on the managerial side, on the leadership side, does it all come back to having strong values and recognizing your people, and that's why they're there? Is there anything else that you would say contributes to that?
Well, it is about culture. People want to have, I've seen this, people want to have impact. They want to be, and being with an organization with a higher purpose. We're serving people in their home. And so constantly being challenged and evolving has been a large part. And that is part of our culture. At the same time, we do have to do things around looking at our incentive compensation and being at market and making sure we're also there for people as they're growing in their careers. So I would say there's no one thing. There's many things we look at. We value people. We are in that service industry. So if you start there, if you start with a heart for your people, what's the right thing to do for our teams and our leaders, that will translate. And having that across how we look at our entire business, whether it's our incentive plans, whether it's recognition, appreciation, that has been our success for so many years.
And I know, David, that our show is called Multifamily Excellence. Most people know FirstService for excellent HOA management. But before the show, you shared that you also manage market rate multifamily with about 5% of your total units or homes, if you're measuring that way.
Yes.
Is that a strategic area of growth for FirstService, or is it just going to,
Yeah, multifamily rental is today about 5% of our business. We have considerable business in New York City as well as Canada, and growing. I will say we're about serving residents in their homes and residential communities. So we are looking to grow. However, when I think strategically, it is in the luxury segment of the market where people value service. We are not a real estate company. We're a service base. So if it's communities, if it's residential communities that care about the brand and the resident experience, that's where we're growing for long-term owners that want to own great residential communities and deliver that service.
Sometimes easier to work with those owners than HOA boards, I'm guessing.
It's a different industry altogether. Earlier we were chatting, and I was fortunate to spend time earlier in my career with a team at Archstone back in the day, and they understood and all about that first move in, renewal process, just how to think about resident experience that drives the ROI on renewal rates, occupancy, and everything else. So, I learned from that team in terms of just being alongside them, and great practices across the entire urban living.
Really smart group of operators, Archstone. And they spun off one of their homegrown technology tools into quite a successful business. Well, David, as we wrap up, is there any other piece of advice? You've already dropped so many pieces of advice, but is there anything else you'd want to leave our audience of up and coming multifamily professionals with?
Our conversation today, I would just remind everybody, at the end of the day, we're all here to serve our residents. And if we pay attention to the culture of our teams, motivate them and lead together, we're fortunate to be in the industry we're in. And so it's just that appreciation for what our teams do each and every day. And I do want to thank you, Jonathan, for having me on today with you.
It was my pleasure. Thank you for joining. If anybody wants to reach out to you, is LinkedIn the best way?
Yes. And also you're welcome to email me, david.diestel@fsresidential.com anytime.
Okay. David, thank you for being on the show. Have a lovely day. We'll be in touch.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Multifamily Excellence, brought to you by With Me. With Me is making lives better every day through convenient, technology-enabled amenities for the multifamily industry and beyond. If you like this episode, make sure to subscribe wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts.